Welcome to Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery. This is the fourth installment of the webinar series being offered to celebrate Child Life Month. So Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery. I am Genevieve Lowry, and I'm a certified child life specialist. And we're going to get going on this. So for those of you, I apologize, who have been to either all four or any of the other of my webinars, you'll have to sit through the next two slides again. I am a mother of two. I am a certified child life specialist for over 25 years. I am certified in infant massage. I'm a Reiki master, and I teach classes, both to healthcare professionals, predominantly child life specialists, nursing and social work, as well as children and families that may or may not have children with special needs or have medical conditions. I am also certified in guided imagery. I am a private practitioner providing interventions to families that are either requiring a little more child life intervention than what they got at the hospital, or after they've left the hospital, or leading up to a hospitalization where they may need some additional support and preparation. I'm also a consultant I've consulted on websites, family day events, as well as in schools. I offer a presentation on hand hygiene, as well as going to the doctor and dentist for young children, and that's within the school setting. I'm an online educator. I teach I co-teach and have co-created the only online child life certification test preparation course, as well as the Convenient Classroom, which is the online website, offers professional development units to both child life specialists and creative arts therapists, and is a way for child life and creative arts therapists to obtain professional development units. I'm adjunct faculty at Bank Street College, where I teach in both the child life programs, co-teaching the medical aspects of illness class, as well as I've been an academic advisor to those pursuing their internships, their child life internships. And I've also taught child development within the special needs and general education class. I am an author of the book, Following Imagination, Activities that Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery, of which you will see some of those and hear about some of those today, as well as I'm an accomplished lecturer both nationally and locally. So for my contact information, you can always reach me at my email, which is practicalparentingsolutions@gmail.com. I am pretty accessible by email. So if you have follow-up questions to this webinar or to any of the other ones, or have questions about private practice or consulting and things like that, please feel free to email me. I'm pretty open and honest and try to respond quickly. My website for my private practice and consulting business is practicalparentingsolutions.com. My online class for the professional development units, as well as the prep test course, is the convenientclassroom.com. DIYchildlife.wordpress.com is a website devoted to, that I created as a way to share sort of my passion, which is making and creating and teaching materials and various expressive arts activities. It's me on video making these things. It's pretty funny, I think, and that's available to anyone interested in checking that out. You can also follow me on Twitter at Genevieve Lowry. All right, so let's get started. When a child hears the word guided imagery, he may picture something like this. It's very foreign. It's somewhat of a foreign concept. The idea of sitting still or sitting in a quiet activity may seem weird or perceived as boring, and they often think, why would I want to do that? Like, originally when I used to try to get kids to engage in meditation or mindfulness practice, it was always kind of like perceived as like, all right, I'll try. But after a few minutes, they'd be kind of like, I don't get it. So I tried to think about different ways to figure out and engage children and make them part of the process. I love this quote, which is, imagery is the currency of dreams and daydreams, memories and reminiscence, plans, projections, and possibilities. It is the language of the arts, emotions, and most important, of the deeper self. This quote is from Martin Rossman from Healing Yourself, a step-by-step program for better health through imagery. And I like this quote because I think it really speaks to, as adults, how we really perceive mindfulness and how we perceive meditation and how we perceive imagery that is really our dreams. It's our thoughts. It's our, you can sit and daydream about yourself becoming X, Y, and Z or doing something that you hadn't imagined yourself doing. It's also thinking back about memories that mean something to you, scents and smells that sort of speak to you, that transport you to a different place. And it's the language of the arts. We can look at a picture and it sometimes stirs something within us. It brings about emotion. It touches us in ways that maybe other avenues don't really provide to them. The problem with this quote is that it's very adult. The language is very adult. The words are very adult. The images and the feelings are very adult. So what does that mean for children? So how do we bring this down how do we bring this somewhat adult concept down to a child's ability to understand it? And this is something where child life specialists really excel, is the ability to sort of take very adult concepts and recreate them or reframe them so that children can understand. This image here is of a young girl, was made by a young girl. She was at 9 or 10 at the time. She was on a very long isolation in a hospital room, and although she had a glorious window to look outside, that sometimes contributed to her sort of feelings of loneliness and isolation. She really started to develop some loneliness and feelings of isolation when the seasons were changing. The birds are chirping outside. She can see the blossoms. People are starting to head on out to the garden and eat their lunches outside as the weather was warming up. And sometimes this made her feel kind of sad because she could not participate in that. She couldn't really smell those things and feel the warm air. And as things changed, she could just see that that's what was happening. So I talked to her a little bit about that, and we talked about how the brain is the strongest part of the body and that the brain really does control your imagination, that it's in charge of what you think and what you feel and how you experience things, and that maybe your brain can transport you to that place if you just imagine yourself there and using all of your senses sort of conjure up the smells of the flowers, the warm breeze as it touches your skin. What are you doing when you're out there? This drawing actually was not from that initial encounter. This drawing had actually come at a different time, but I was able to use this image that we had created through some other activity as a catalyst or as the foundation to really understand, look at how you've created all these things in your brain. Go to that spot in your brain where your friends are. Go to the spot where your feelings are. Can you talk to? Can you address your feelings? Where in your body do you experience being awake, being tired, and being able to use this image really as the foundation for teaching her how to create her own visualization or her own guided imagery so that she could transport herself from that hospital room into the garden. So calm, relaxed, peaceful, and tranquil, these are all wonderful feelings and all things that we strive for, but they're also very adult terms. Children don't always understand what they mean or how to get there. I think that they have an idea about what it means to be calm, but I'm not so sure that they always understand exactly how it is that they're supposed to get to that place. Because they are feelings or a state of being, but in actuality, this feeling may be by far more elusive and harder to understand without a concrete foundation or experience that defines it for children. It also, when you think about a child who's hospitalized or a child who experiences anxiety or nervousness, that when they're already in those moments, and certainly for children in the hospital setting, it's very much, they're always feeling kind of in that heightened state of alertness. Who's going to walk in next? What's going to happen any minute? I'm not really sure what's around the bend. So it's even that much harder to find that place of calm, that place of comfort. So how do we get them? How do you get a child to understand what these words mean? And how do you relate a familiar experience? And what are those familiar experiences for that particular child? So one of the key elements to doing that is to connect it to a familiar experience and to connect it to familiar images for children. So when I talk about guided imagery, which sort of does sound like guided imagery, it does sort of sound a little, out there. I often talk to children that it's something that they've probably done before. They just didn't know that that's what it was called, which is also why it's really important to always label and give language to experiences so that children know what they're asking for. So I often use the sentence, I'd like to help you learn something that you may think you have not heard of before, but I bet once you hear about it, you may think, I totally know what you mean. Daydreaming is an example of that. Being lost in one's thoughts is another example. Ask that, have you ever sat in school and excuse me, have you ever sat during class at school but instead of focusing on what the teacher's teaching, you're really thinking about the soccer game tomorrow or the birthday party that you're going to. And when you finally look up, you realize, oh my goodness, like 10 minutes has gone by. So that's what guided imagery is. That's what daydreaming is, a form of this relaxation or this guided imagery practice. Guided imagery is a way of using your imagination. It's like pretending, telling a story, watching a movie in your mind. I often tell my son before he goes to bed at night if he's having trouble sleeping, think of a story. Where's someplace you'd like to be right now, or what is a memory that you have? Think about that before you go to bed and imagine yourself there and in it. And that often helps a child relax their mind, relax the rest of their body, and that they're so busy sort of concentrating and thinking about that then he was actually able to relax the rest of it and fall asleep. To sort of talk about the words like comfort or to talk about the words like calm and relax, I relate them sometimes to the words comfort. So what does it feel like when you get a hug from someone you know loves you and you love them? That feeling of that warmth of a parent or caregiver's arms that are enveloped around you, or that feeling when somebody who you really respect and admire pays you a compliment or tells you that you've done a good job on something. Those are feelings of safety. Those are feelings of comfort. Those are feelings of self-esteem, that you feel confident and good about yourself. How does it feel when you wake up in the morning? That sort of in-between state before you've got that whole list of your day to sort of come down on you. And then you're still sort of in that weird twilighty space where you're kind of half asleep but sort of awake. It is really quite a relaxed state to be in. So asking children to sort of imagine what it's like to feel those feelings. Where do you feel safe? Where do you feel comfortable? Where is a place that you can be yourself? Where is that place that you feel most safe and most secure, that you can just be who you are and that you can breathe easy? And those are the ways that I sort of talk about the words calm and relaxed for children and how I describe guided imagery. So how do you engage them in this practice? How do you engage children? Well, I got to tell you, the number one thing to do is to always get the parents involved. Without the parents on board to practice this with their child, to be there and support them when a child is experiencing anxiety, and sort of reminding the child, hey, you have these tools, you know what to do. Use the tools that you've been taught. And the parent can help that child. And the parent can also practice and use the same tools that we're teaching these children. So you can do it as a family activity. And we'll go over some of the activities, and they all work really well as a family or in a group setting, as well as they do individually with each child. Involve the child. Use the child's strengths and interests. Find out what they enjoy doing. Is this really super physically active child? Then you want to use games that are more physical with movement. Is this a child that likes to do arts and crafts? Then you want to make sure that you're involving that art and that creativity so that the child can connect to it in a level or in a place that they are really already comfortable, and that is a place of strength for them as they are learning a new skill and mastering a new skill. Let the child choose and control the activity. You may have an end result. You may have a framework that you walk in, but the bottom line is you got to follow that child's lead. You have to go on their journey, go on their path, follow them, because they are going to tweak it and change it and make it their own, and that is exactly what you want, because the more ownership that they feel, the more mastery they will have, the greater their sense of self-esteem, the greater their creativity, the more likely they are to use it. and employ it at times where they're feeling nervous and anxious, where they're having a painful procedure, when they are really in need of sort of needing to kind of be able to relax and control their own emotions. And if it is a tool that they feel they have designed, then they will be more likely and more empowered to choose to use those tools. But make it fun. If it's not fun for you, it's not fun for them. I cannot stress this enough. It is important, which is really how these sort of activities all came about, because I found like this idea of sitting still and this quiet mindfulness was sometimes daunting to children, and it seemed kind of boring to them, that they were like, why would I want to do that? Once I started bringing in sort of the games and the art to teach them just the foundations, then I could move them into the sitting still and the mindfulness, and then they understood the concept and they understood how it worked, and they were much more likely to use the tools that they had developed themselves also. So by making it fun and engaging, really encouraged that really built on that foundation for the next steps. So how do we engage them? What are the ways that we engage children in this? So the name of the webinar is Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery. So we're going to start with movement. We learn best when we combine mind and body. When we are using our bodies to learn something, we are much more likely to retain that information. So muscle memory trumps learning alone. So many of us probably learned to ride a bike when we were 5 or 6 years old. Maybe we rode for a while in our youth, but maybe we haven't ridden on a bike in 10 or 12 years. I will almost guarantee you that if you got on one, you would know exactly how to ride that bike, because your muscle memory is by far more, retains the information better than if someone had just said to you, here's how you ride a bike, and you never got on one. You're never going to have that information isn't going to stay with you. So by encouraging children to physically move and do certain things, and I'll tell you what they are, what's going on in these pictures in a minute, provides an alternate approach to learning. So in these images, the top one, these are my 2 children. The top one is them doing tree pose. So I asked them to stand tall like a tree, and this is them doing tree pose. So they feel their branches are strong and mighty, and you might even say that. Your branches are strong and mighty. They are, hold those up, hold them up tight and tense. They can hold a lot of weight. They're very strong. They're very built for you. It's a big, strong tree. And then you might say, oh, but on the end of that tree is one leaf. And then they might move that one hand while the rest of the body is tight. And what you're doing is you're teaching them what it feels like to be tense and to hold that muscle in, and then what it feels like to let go. The bottom picture is to flop like a rag doll. So I might ask them to flop like a rag doll, or maybe the gust of wind has come and I will have done a progressive muscle relaxation with them, where first the leaf comes, then a stronger wind is blowing the branch, then it blows the tree trunk, and at this point they're all swaying. Maybe it even knocks the tree down. This was actually not knocking the tree down, but you could certainly go that route. This was to be like a rag doll, so we went from tree pose to rag doll. But that they understand through this process of what is a progressive muscle relaxation. They understand the steps and the movement of one hand being a part of your body still being tense as you loosen and relax and go through the whole body. And then by the time you're done, the whole body and all the muscles are now loose. And by using images that children can connect to and recreate, loose like a wet noodle, floppy like a rag doll, blowing in the breeze like a leaf or a tree branch that the breeze comes, and that starts to teach children how to clearly understand what it means to be in that, how their muscles can become relaxed through a progressive muscle relaxation. And games like this are what teach that. Create. So images are empowering when generated by the child. I don't mind the use of scripts. I just think that the scripts, you need to look at scripts to make sure that they are appropriate for that child. You don't necessarily want to use a script about a garden if the child lives in the inner city and doesn't have access to that. You may change it to a park, or you might change it to the schoolyard or something else and using those same kinds of concepts of a script, but you want to make sure that your script also speaks to the population and the specific experiences of a child. I actually prefer to have children create their own, and that's really what the majority of my activities do, is that they have children really hone in on and figure out how to create their own script that then they have a sense of ownership of. So imagine a place you feel safe and comfortable. This is actually taken from the activity, the Imagination Scrapbook, which you're going to see you'll see another example of this a little bit later. So imagine a place you feel safe and comfortable. That can be real, it can be imagined, it can be a combination of both things. The idea is that you're getting a child starting to really think about, oh, where are the places that I feel most comfortable? Where are places that I feel safe? Where is a place I'd like to go that would be fun and exciting to think about and write about and draw about? This image here is called, I call this activity my guiding star activity, and how do you want to feel when is the first question. And so on one of them it says peaceful, happy, super calm is how she wants to feel when she's giving an oral report, when, when she's falling asleep at night, when she has a test to take. What are things that help you feel? What are some other things in your life that help you feel that way? Or when do you feel that way? It's another good question to ask kids. So I feel that way when I'm singing. I feel calm and happy when I sing, when I'm helping others, when I'm listening to music, or when I'm drawing. All right, so now the connection comes. How do we facilitate the connection from what are you doing when you're singing, drawing, and listening to music and helping others, that you can help yourself remember those moments, remember those feelings, when you're at a time where you want to feel that way, when you want to feel the way that you feel when you're singing and helping others. So I want to be calm and I want to feel happy and peaceful when I'm taking this exam or when I'm taking this test. And so I think about a time when I felt that way, and I bring those feelings with me to this new experience. And what am I doing? I'm breathing normal. I'm sitting a certain way, or I'm engaging in something that I really enjoy doing also. So those are ways to start that conversation and to start a child on the journey of creating their own script or creating their own tool for helping them relax. Play. For the younger child, play is a great way to engage children in guided imagery practice. Dramatic play, children are already engaged in guided imagery practice. They are imagining themselves as something that is powerful, as something that is strong. For child life specialists, we encourage children to be the doctor instead of being the patient. And that's a form of dramatic play. That's a form of asking a child to take on a role that they feel empowered and that they can control. And that's really what guided imagery is also asking children to do, to put yourselves in a place where you know you feel that way. So dramatic play is a great tool for younger children to sort of, remember when you were playing in the house, in the kitchen the other day, and you were pretending to be your mom, or you were pretending to be your teacher at school, and what is it about your teacher that you really admire, or things like that you can start to really draw out for a child words and language that they can connect to. Other games are animal charades. Animal charades is asking a child to sort of pick an animal and act it out. What is it about that animal that is strong? What is it about that animal that makes it scary? What makes that animal, what gives that animal courage, do you think? And I don't only focus on animals that are obvious, like the bear, the lion, the tiger, but also talk about animals like mice. Because for some children that have lower self-esteem, sometimes it's good to look at animals who they might perceive, quote unquote, as being sort of weaker animals, but then pointing out what are the strengths that animal brings to the table also. That animal can crawl in and out of tiny spaces. That's what gives that animal its strength. That animal has teeth that are super strong that can bite through, wood and walls. That animal is very fast. That's why it can scurry away and get away from those other animals. So by doing that, you're also building upon a child, using guided imagery to help a child build upon their own self-esteem, and maybe being able to translate that to help them recognize their own strengths that they bring to the table that they may not typically perceive as their strengths. Body scanning is another game or another tool, really an activity that I use with children where they pick a word and they draw that word on the body outline, and this can be either done as a group or individually. You can use one big, large tracing of a body. Every kid can have their own large tracing, or every kid can have a smaller version, and I have an example of this coming up. So some other great games just to teach breathing, and I did talk a little bit about muscle relaxation. So for breathing activities, pinwheel. What you're teaching children isn't just to take deep breaths, but it's about controlling and focusing on their breath. So how do we teach children to not, they're blowing bubbles, they're blowing the pinwheel when we're wanting to distract them from a painful procedure or from something that's anxiety producing in their life. We want them to focus on their breath, but you can't just say, hey, let's focus on our breath and expect them, or blow this pinwheel, or you practice beforehand. Let's determine how many spins per breath it takes to make this pinwheel go around. Where's the exact spot we need to blow? Because sometimes pinwheels are funny. You have to really blow in the right place to really get it going. You have to blow a certain amount of breath. If you blow too much, it sort of blows it too hard in the wrong place. It sort of freezes it up if you don't use enough. So it teaches children how to focus and control their own breath and their own breathing. The same thing with blowing bubbles. Try to blow a large bubble. You have to be really slow and controlled with that. When you are slow and controlled, and you learn how to do that by using a pinwheel, by using bubbles, by breathing in for 3 through your nose and out for 5 with your mouth, that teaches children also to recognize how much air they're holding in their bodies all the time we're doing that. You realize once you blow that you do that breath for the last couple of seconds and you're pushing out air that you've been holding in a very tense way probably. So these are things that then you can say to a child when you've practiced this stuff. So when you're in the moment of wherever it is you want them to be calm, whether it's a medical procedure or encounter, or whether it's at school or at home or learning to fall asleep on their own or whatever, that you're then saying you're using now language about focusing on breath that they understand because they've now practiced this with the bubbles and the pinwheels. Pretend you're blowing that bubble really big. Look how big it's getting. Look at how you're blowing your breath so beautifully controlled in the same amount for a few seconds. Great, that's beautiful. So that's a way to teach children how to control and how to focus their breath. I talked a little bit about the progressive muscle relaxation games earlier in the movement slide. The Simon Says game, Simon Says stand like a tree, although I wonder, since we're talking about guided imagery, if maybe we shouldn't be calling it Deepak Chopra Says or Eckhart Tolle Says. Eckhart Tolle says to stand tall like a tree, and then you have the isolating movement is what I was talking about before, where you just move one hand, and then you move the branch, and that's the arm, and then you sway the tree trunk as the breeze is getting stronger. So that teaches children from one section of the body into the next to really recognize how they can control and how they can loosen by just focusing on that portion of the body, how they can release the muscles or release that tension and relax their body one section at a time, and that helps to teach progressive muscle relaxation. So what are the benefits? And this is an example of the body scanning activity I was talking about. So what are the benefits? Certainly body scanning, it helps children to identify feelings and to manage and soothe those emotions. When a child is in control of their own emotion and their own emotional state, and they have tools that help them to control them and to soothe them and to better manage them within a stressful environment, they're going to have mastery, and they're going to feel a sense of control of themselves, of their emotions, and of the outcome. They're going to have better problem-solving skills and creativity. If you're not sort of like so seeing, how angry you are or how upset you are by something, then you're better able to bring a child down from that state, and the child is better able to then go back to some of the tools that you provided them with, focusing on their breath, being able to breathe, talking their way through to a solution. So guided imagery practice and mindfulness also just has a overall wellness, a better sense of wellness. When we are in a more relaxed state, our bodies are not in this heightened state of stress all the time, we just have a greater sense of comfort and ease about ourselves. It builds and promotes self-esteem, that when a child has these tools and they're better able to manage situations and circumstances, they feel much better about themselves. They have a sense of ownership and mastery of tools and strategies that they have learned, that they can control these things in their lives, and they have a way to do it. They may not always be successful all the time with it, but they will be if they continue to practice. It's like anything else in our lives. When we practice it, we get better at it and stronger at it and more capable, and we feel better, stronger, and more capable and confident about what we're able to achieve. Children have increased creativity and problem solving. When we're not overwhelmed with emotions, and that's all that we're seeing is the red of anger or the green of jealousy, that they're better able to be more creative about their thoughts and more creative about their problem solving. This picture to the side is an example of the first page of the Imagination Scrapbook. A place I would like to go real or imagined is the first page, and that can be real, imagined. That can be a combination of the two. This child wrote about the carnival, where she wanted to go with the fun house. I believe I actually think it's also based on Coney Island, because that is a picture of the Wonder Wheel next to it. Interestingly enough, this child happens to be afraid of heights and didn't truly enjoy the Wonder Wheel. So it's interesting that she wrote about that. But it could also be that that's something that she wants to gain control over and be able to do without being so fearful. So some resources. I have some books for you. Sitting Still Like a Frog is a great one on mindfulness exercises. Visiting Feelings, I love this book because it really is about identifying feelings, but it's also about acknowledging your feelings. And it's very mindful. It's a very mindfulness practice to sort of acknowledge the feelings that you're having and to decide, is this something I want to look at right now, or do I want to decide to address it later? And for some kids, it's important that they say, that they have the ability, the tools to say, you know what, I don't want to do this right now. I'm going to do it later. And knowing that they can come back to whatever those feelings were. But this book sort of talks about, does it sit comfortably with you? Do you want it to stay? Do you not want it? How did it happen? And it's all in a rhyming, and the images are just beautiful, as you can see from the cover. I Wonder is very similar also in I wonder what it's like for this. I wonder what that is. And that also teaches that sort of guided imagery and visualization practice about what are the things that you wonder about. And, of course, a plug for myself. So Following Imagination, Activities that Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery. This book is available. All these books are available on Amazon. I don't know if the others are Kindle versions. Mine is a Kindle version. And eventually, probably in the next few weeks or so, I hope to have a companion activity book based on the Imagination Scrapbook that anyone would be able to utilize individually with children, so that they would have their own copy and version of the book. It also teaches you how to transform the Imagination Scrapbook into that child's own script for a guided imagery or mindfulness practice based on the drawings that they created through the book. And that will also be available on Amazon. It probably won't be on Kindle because it's an activity book that necessarily that every child would want to have their own copy or version. And that should be out in the next few weeks. Training and education. The Beth Israel Holistic Healing Center is where I got the majority of where I did my training for this, where I started my journey. I don't know if the program still actually exists, so that would be important for you guys to look it up and find out, or how often they operate. It was a year-long program that met a couple times a year for full weekends and stuff like that. Academy for Guided Imagery is a good website for some resources as well. I really recommend the Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics and Synergy Seminars. I believe that these both have programs that are pediatric based, whereas when I originally did the Beth Israel one, it was mostly all adults, and I had to create and adapt it in some respects to my own. I've done some additional training since that, but that's how I got started. So I do recommend the Society for Developmental and Behavior Pediatrics. It's a great program. I've heard wonderful things about it, as well as Synergy Seminars. And some resources. This is meditation and how it affects your brain video, which is kind of interesting. And then Let'sLassoTheMoon.com was breathing exercises that were just sort of fun breathing exercises that was like breathe like Darth Vader and stuff like that. I thought they were funny. PBS Parents, this is a post on PBS Parents I was asked to consult on a couple of years ago on integrating guided imagery practice into sort of everyday events for children. And Inner Health Studio does provide scripts, but like I said before, I think it's really important to make sure that those scripts are something that are appropriate for the child that you're using them with and also speaks to that child. It might be a great activity or an interesting activity to maybe use one of those scripts as a foundation and then ask the child how they would like to reword it or rewrite it so that it is their own. I just thought of that right now. That would actually be kind of a cool little activity to do. So anyway, that brings me to the end of my presentation, and if there are any questions, I will take some questions. I'll give you all a few minutes to type some stuff in. And while you're doing that, I will tell you also that this webinar has been recorded, and as have all the previous webinars if you missed them. They will all be, the previous three are all posted to the website already. Those are on practicalparenting.solutions.com under the events page. This also will be posted to the website as well for you to go back to or forward to someone else who you think might benefit from hearing this. I am also going to, looks like people are interested in having the documents, having some of the resources and the book titles and things like that. So I can certainly recreate those as Word docs and post those to the website as well. I'll have to figure out whether, I think I'll just probably post those with each individual webinar so that the docs are with that, or I'll create a resources page or something. I don't know yet. But I will let you all know. I can email everybody when those documents become available. All right, so I'd like to thank everybody for coming and attending today's webinar. I hope that there will be some more in the future, either free or low cost, that I will be able to provide. I think it's really important that we share our ideas with each other and in meaningful ways. And this is something, guided imagery is certainly something I feel incredibly passionate about. I hope that came across, and I've done a lot of study and a lot of work in this area. And I hope that if people have questions or stories to share with me, please don't hesitate to ask. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar.